Hello again and welcome. Slightly different view today because it's not going to be lathe work. When I did a video a couple of videos ago about ride the bevel, move your body, I used wet oak as the blank, and to get it square I just ran it through the bandsaw to get a square blank to work on the lathe with. And then I went, after I'd done that video, I went to work for about 4 or 5 days. Well, I came back in to clean up the workshop and I had left the slice of oak on the cast iron table of the bandsaw, and I will now show you the horrible rusty mess it's left on there to the perfect shape of the piece of wood. Lesson learned after all these years: never forget to put some protective wax or some sort of protective coating on your cast iron bedways when working with wet wood. I do it almost as a matter of course on the lathe, but I just didn't think on the bandsaw. Had I taken the piece of wood away straight away, it's very unlikely there would have been a very light film possibly on there. So I'll change the camera angle now and I'll show you my method. There are many different methods to actually achieve the same end result, but I'll show you what I tend to use and it works pretty well. I'll change the camera angle and let's get rid of this horrible bit of rust on my bandsaw table. So you can see the offending mark here, and this is the offending piece of oak, and that was lying there for about 4 days, maybe 5. And when I just lifted it off just to sort of clear up, that was left underneath. Now you can see here I've started already, and I thought, well, it might be of interest to a few of you out there, so I'll show you what I do. No special equipment needed. The first thing I do to get rid of the heavy rust on the top here is to use a paint scraper, a window paint scraper, which is just a razor blade in a holder, and literally just go through like so, and as you can see it's lifting all that rust off the tabletop. Okay, so just get rid of that. Just get rid of that there. And that's the majority of the heavy rust gone, but we're still left with a rather ugly mark. Now there are obviously several ways you can get rid of that mark and get your table back to near pristine condition. Now what I found works, and it's happened occasionally on my lathe as well when I've forgotten to wax it. Now what I use is wire wool. This is 0000 wire wool, and again it's just a case of, might as well do it over the whole table, and make sure that your guard is down so that you don't catch your arm. Now that just gets rid of the worst. Okay, now what I use, they're the ultra fine sanding pads, and you can see I've started here. Now the thing is with the cast iron, there is not a grain to it, but if you look you can see that that's the way of the grain, if you like. So if we start at this end and go with the way that we put our wood in, it gets rid of it, but you're having bits left because they're in the grain of the wood. But if you go with the grain of the cast iron, sorry, but if you go with it that way, you can see that you're getting rid of the vast majority of the marks. Now what you have to do is go over the whole table, and I won't bore you with that, and I'll do that and I'll come back for the next step. Okay, so that's it. I've gone over the whole table now. You can see all the rubbish that it's brought off, and I forgot to mention, use a scrap bit of wood to put it on top, on the back of the pad, which makes it easier to control, and it's not so much of a stress on your fingers. And then I just take a fresh piece when I've done that, clean that off with a paper towel, clean any rubbish and residue off with a paper towel, and then just use a fresh piece just to go over again, just to finish it off. I mean, you're never going to get rid of, I've had this, I don't know, 5 years, maybe even 6, and you're never going to get rid of every mark on there, every little scratch and so on. But at the end of the day, as long as your stock goes through nice and easily, that's the main thing. And obviously if there's a rust on there, that's not going to happen. Okay, so we'll just wipe that off with a paper towel. Now what I use is a machine wax, and I've used this for years as well. I find it very effective. Just quite liberally spread it all over the table, and don't forget your slots as well. And just let that dry up a minute, and then we'll buff it off. Okay, so now that wax has dried, and give it a good old buff up. And the good thing with this is you're getting rid of any other rubbish that happens to accumulate on there. And as I keep saying, don't forget the slots. Well, I think that's just about it. Almost as good as new. So, there. And of course your stock will run through nice and smoothly now. Well, I hope some of you found that of some interest. Some of the old boys, I'm sure, will use similar methods or something like that to get their tables clean. But I think the lesson to be learnt is when you're using wet wood especially, make sure that you put some form of protective coating on any cast iron tables or bedways, etc. in my view, especially if you're running pine or something similar, but especially pine. Which doesn't have to be wet through the bandsaw. That produces a lot of resin and gunge, and it can protect your table. A little bit of wax goes a long way, and it doesn't hurt to just protect it, to save having to do that on a more regular basis, what we've just done. Well, thank you very much indeed for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers now.